Welcome to ECW 2007 and a happy new year as far as this save is concerned. Tonight we return to our regular scheduled episodes of CyberSlam with episode number 46 of the show. On the best of 2006 episodes, there was an announcement made about the future of this save, and if anybody missed that, in 2007 it was announced that Extreme Championship Wrestling would return to TV with ECW on FX. The first segment is a good segment to kick off the year. Paul Heyman coming down to the ring, cutting a promo that appears to continue his backtracking from involvement with the Hustle and his previous displays of bias towards certain members of the roster and against other members. He's now back to being an impartial figure and says that the pressure of the last year resulted in him making some poor decisions, some mistakes. He was trying to please too many people, answer too many masters. The idea of the promo is that he's putting over that his job isn't to influence and manufacture the stars, but to create the environment that allows new stars to flourish and be created. Of course, CM Punk, Low-Ki, Homicide, Xavier were in the process of trying to do that, some having better results than others, and with ECW on FX looming, I really want us to have a more defined, focused vision of what ECW is going to be, and Paul Heyman as a heel figure doesn't work in that image that I'm trying to create. His job isn't to involve himself in the rivalries and decide who and how titles are won. His job is to make the best matches with the best competitors involved. That brings him perfectly on to the main event of Guilty as Charged, and he has an announcement. He wants to bring out the world champion CM Punk. Punk gets to the ring and is told that he will defend his title at Guilty as Charged. Heyman then brings out Rhino shortly after. The TV champion will also be defending his title at the pay-per-view because the two men in the ring will challenge each other. They have both claimed to be the number one champion in ECW, and as they go face to face, it is confirmed that in the main event of Guilty as Charged, CM Punk versus Rhino, world champion v TV title, winner takes all. This led into the opening match of the night and the opening match of the year. Rhino making a ECW World Television title defense. Perhaps he won't be the one in the Guilty as Charged main event, but Kevin Fertig will. After 8 minutes and 5 seconds, it's a decisive win and the second loss for Kevin Fertig in ECW. His last coming on the previous episode, the final match of 2006, and his second defeat coming on the first episode of 2007. He's going to have to snap out of this, but it's another defeat for him. A poor performance from Fertig and a much better performance from Rhino, who puts in that level of performance that we're going to need in the Guilty as Charged main event. After the match, he stands tall in the ring, celebrating another win, a very big win, against the man who had only previously been defeated by CM Punk, as I said. Kevin Fertig's aura of invincibility is gone, well and truly demolished, following a decisive victory for the television champion. Still undefeated in ECW himself, the commentators put over the size of the task that faces CM Punk at Guilty as Charged. Heading to the back, Tommy Dreamer is tying his bootlaces, looking down ahead of what has been promoted as a career-altering announcement scheduled for later in the evening. Making his ECW return, Sandman, for the first time in a few months we see him, he walks into shot. This briefly puts a smile on the face of Dreamer, who looks increasingly downtrodden as the weeks go on, seeing his old friend. Sandman asks him what the hell's going on with his career, what's happening with Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer says that he's made his decision, and he knows what he has to do tonight. Johnny Kashmere is then interviewed in the back and puts over his plans for 2007, the usual tactic of claiming that this year will be his year. Johnny's year doesn't get off to a good start, however, as he has jumped from behind while promoting his match against Low-Ki by the Havana Pitbulls. Having been helped by Xavier to beat Sonny Siaki last week, it appears that Kashmere is now in the Hustle's crosshairs, and the difficult challenge of Low-Ki has been made significantly more troublesome by the attack from Reyes and Romero. The second match of the night sees Paul Burchill squash Roadkill in a very short, very one-sided match. A 61 is a good performance from him, and we're happy to see him picking up victories. And another squash match, he's going to have to develop into something else and go into a better storyline in the coming months, but for now we're happy with him just picking up these squash wins, picking up some momentum, and hopefully picking up some popularity in the process. After the match, the Horsemen are present as Tommy Dreamer makes his way down to the ring. The commentators put over the role that the group have played in his downward spiral in recent months. They retired his mentor Terry Funk, they've attacked him, they've attacked his friends. Tommy Dreamer asks them to leave, and considering Carino is so happy to hear what he presumes is a retirement speech, the group are led away by Carino. He's more than happy to let this go down without their involvement. Tommy Dreamer cuts an emotional promo about ECW's revival being the dream that turned into a nightmare for him. He puts over the personal and professional issues that have faced him throughout the course of the year, as well as his own internal struggles. ECW is flying, but he is floundering. As pleased as he is to see ECW's success, it hurts him to see what it's done to him. As Tommy Dreamer emotionally comes close to saying those decisive words that we expect, making his potential retirement official, Raven comes out. Raven cuts an unscripted promo, essentially taking credit for Dreamer's psychological torment over the last 6 months. He mocks Dreamer, saying that this time he didn't have to fight him, he didn't have to beat Dreamer to a pulp, because Tommy has turned into a quitter. As Raven continues with his harsh, spiteful words towards Dreamer, Balls Mahoney and the Sandman come out, and this leads to Raven retreating. Dreamer finally finds his voice. He tells Raven there's no way that he's retiring without one more match against him. So potentially setting up a match for Guilty as Charged there. It had to go down. Again, it's a poor rating. Dreamer and Raven, one of the key storylines of ECW's history, but when we've tried to redo it in 2007, it's basically flopped. Poor segments, poor ratings from both sides, and it's probably a sign that going back and rehashing old ground isn't what we need to do in this new ECW, and it is those stars of the future that we need to focus on more and more, especially as we come to FX. We then get footage from Sonny Siaki's defeat to Johnny Kashmere on the final live episode from 2006, and the future of the Hustle after Xavier vowed to destroy the group. He stands alone, so it seems unlikely that he's going to do that, but where Low-Ki stands on these issues is currently unknown. He stayed pretty impartial in the war between the former partners, but he will be Johnny Kashmere's opponent in tonight's main event. The commentators also confirmed that next week, Homicide will go one-on-one with Xavier for a second time, this time a tables match. The main event sees Low-Ki pick up a decisive victory over Johnny Kashmere, albeit in 12 minutes. Kashmere gives a great display of himself despite a decisive finish. It is an even open match, both men getting plenty of offense in and some near falls. It was decent wrestling but not much heat. That said, it was a really good rating for a main event, one of the better main events that we've done. A 68 from Low-Ki, obviously helping us along the way, but Kashmere also doing okay, the match getting the crowd buzzing, and a key crusher is enough for Low-Ki to pick up the victory in the first main event of 2007. After the match, and a valiant display from Johnny Kashmere, which is put over on commentary, he was attacked, remember, earlier in the night. It's clear that fighting through that pain had earned the respect of Low-Ki throughout the course of the match, albeit despite their turbulent past. As Johnny Kashmere made it back to his feet, Low-Ki offered a handshake to his opponent. Kashmere didn't know what to make of this, but had no time to process it as Homicide led Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero down to the ring. Homicide questioned what Low-Ki was doing, saying that the group needs to focus on dealing with Xavier next week. They don't need to be hugging and making friends with any other members of the roster. These words and Homicide's tone didn't sit well with the Warrior, and he told Homicide to back off. He then flipped out when the Havana Pitbulls tried to get involved and told him to listen to what Homicide had to say. This resulted in Key pushing Ricky Reyes and Rocky pushing him back. Homicide looked to hold Key off, telling him to calm down. This didn't need to happen. Things didn't need to get even worse, and he told the Pitbulls to step down and chill out. Key looked at Homicide's hand on his chest and batted it away, getting in the Hustle's leader's face before knocking into his shoulder and heading up the ramp. More turbulence, more issues within the Hustle. We don't know what side Low-Ki's on, but he is certainly not happy with being pushed around by Homicide. The group standing in the middle of the ring, very concerned about what's going on as CyberSlam goes off the air. So it's a 62C rating, which is a good rating and will be good enough for when we move to FX. I think we're expected to get a C-, I think is the minimum expectations. So we are going to have to make sure that we keep a solid, consistent level, but we're not in any danger considering we get a 63 main event and a 62 show featuring Low-Ki and Johnny Kashmere. That's more of a look of how I want the main events to look. Of course, we've got all the originals, but the new breed, the fresh, young, hungry talent is what we need to build around. And in 2007, as we return to television, that is what we intend to do. We've got a brilliant fledgling roster, lots of young guys, lots of future stars. The job now in these last 3 episodes of CyberSlam that are coming up is to build, of course, to Guilty as Charged, but also create the roster, get that structure in place that means that we will have the best possible chance of being a success when the show comes to FX.